Okay, so today we're going to be discussing doxing of council members. Do you guys think that council members should dox themselves, not publicly, but at least to the team? Not necessarily in governance version 1, but at least like moving forward into governance v2, where Illuvium continues to move towards becoming a just super professional, super like just top tier AAA project. Do you think that that should be required of council members, Annie?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's a fairly straightforward position here. Yes, I think that you should, as an elected council member, dox to at least to the team, like not everyone in the team, but to someone in the team. And it's very simple. Why? Because if we're going to expect the council to be able to make the appropriate decisions, they need to be equipped with information that is by definition going to be confidential. And so my expectation is we're going to have NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, for those that may not be familiar with the structure, that indicate what you are and are not able to share outside of the discussions within the council walls. And so, if you have an NDA that's valid, you need to have a person's name on it, and you need to have a person that therefore is doxed in order for that structure to be effective. And so, very simply, given the information that should be expected to be shared for the council to be effective, you functionally have to have the person doxed at least to the team. The question about like doxing to the broader community, I think is a fair point. I know, so I'm not like openly doxed to everyone in the community. However, I have no problem doxing myself to the team for that kind of a purpose. What I would say is there are all sorts of reasons why someone might dox. In my case, because of my position in my Web 2 role, I never want my company to be in a position that they feel a public position I've taken on crypto, blockchain, the industry is one that they feel that they're pulled into. And so me just not being doxed manages to protect my Web 2 job and my Web 2 company from having a representative of the organization in a management position take some statement publicly. And so, again, I think people hear, oh, someone's not doxed, why would that be the case? There are very legitimate reasons for that. And so I think you want to protect individuals that may be able to contribute a lot to the project that are in that type of a situation. But I think if you're not willing to at least dox to sign an NDA agreement for a project of this magnitude, I would question if you really have the right understanding of the role and the size and the impact of Illuvium as an organization to be able to fill that effectively. So that's my take on it. Deraji, what about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. The thing that I would build on is as we look to governance V2, it's getting into specialization and people that are qualified to take on unique positions and bring a breadth and diverse experiences to the role. And with that comes, what are your actual qualifications? And so are you qualified to take on these various positions? And so I'll share for me, like, I expected this of myself joining council last time. And so in DMing Kieran shortly after winning and thanking him for voting for me and all that, it was like, hey, by the way, this is me. And I sent him my LinkedIn profile. I'm like, I'm not screwing around. I want to be out there. This is who I am. I'm honest with my qualifications. And so that's just how I would expect it to be. And especially if we expect a higher caliber of individual with a greater qualification to fulfill certain roles of, do we have the right expertise on the council to make these decisions? You need to have something to back that up of, are you that person with that qualification?
Yeah, it's a good point. I'll maybe add on top of that, Deraji. I have multiple projects that are substantially smaller. Orders of magnitude smaller than Illuvium that I'm doing less critical functions for, that I have NDAs in place and I'm fully doxed to. And so, frankly, when I found out that it actually isn't doxed, I also was surprised because for me that's an expectation of an organization this size. Yeah, Vet, what about you?
I agree with everything that you guys have said. I've a point that I want to add on top, and also a potential counterpoint. So the point I want to add on top is, I possibly controversially, also think that anybody running for council should be willing to at least speak, at bare minimum, at least speak in a voice chat without showing their face. And I do actually think that they should be happy to show their face, because I feel like it just sort of, it's good for people to actually be able to relate to what you've actually said very directly. And I think like showing your face does do that. I don't think the face thing is something, is definitely not a hill I'm willing to die on, but the voice thing certainly is, because we've been in council meetings, Deraji, and we don't even show our face during council meetings. But if somebody was just typing and wasn't speaking, I would find that incredibly, possibly awkward, but also just not productive and just not really effective to the way that just a discussion or a meeting usually takes place. And the other side that I had as a possible counterpoint is just in the future GovV2 structure, there's going to be some more specialized councils, which I definitely agree should require doxing to the team. Personally, I have no issue personally doxing to the team, but I think that on the like community member side, like the council that's just for like the community council, the sub DAO, sub council, should that actually require doxing? And part of me is like, well, not necessarily. Although if there is going to be NDA signing, I still think it just should. And I don't think there should be an issue for people willing to take on such a responsibility, especially it's a job, right? Like you're in the real world, you'd never like get hired anywhere and get paid money with your identity anonymous. Like that's a concept that's just brand new. And I think that might be a little bit more of a gray area. Should those community members be doxed or not? But obviously, if they have to sign an NDA, then I definitely think that it, they should be doxed.
I think if you go to hire a hitman, you probably don't require them to be doxed. But in general, I agree with your position. But it's pretty uncommon to not have someone know who you are when they hire you into a position.
Yeah. And what are your guys' thoughts on potentially not doxing for just the community side, Deraji?
I think as we continue to grow and as it gets more fleshed out what regulations are, that there is an expectation of information that is shared with you dictate you being doxed to sign that NDA to be accountable for taking on that information. And not signing it excludes you from that information, therefore potentially excludes you from being able to serve the position effectively. So that's the spot where I would take community still has that level of expectation if you want the information.
But would the community sub council actually be exposed to much information? Are they not like mostly just collating community sentiment and then bringing it up for more docs members? So maybe only one member within that needs to be doxed, being the one that ends up on the higher council. Obviously, right now we're actually discussing GovV2 up front, but that will make sense soon, I think.
Now, certainly if you're on the highest level of the Illuminati Council, I think it purely is an expectation.
100%.
I think as we get into the structure, that may be a question, but I'm interested to see the community's take on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree on that. I think that you bring up an interesting point, and there's some validity to that. I think I probably lean more towards still having people dox at the community council level. But if someone wanted to really, if the community says like, hey, we think that this should be an opportunity, if someone really, for whatever reason, and again, I don't know people's personal situations, there might be a valid reason why someone even could not dox to the team. And, someone wanted to make the point, even though they therefore can't sign an NDA, they can't have access to all the information that everyone else does. We still think as a community, they can effectively serve on the community sub-council. I would be open to hearing that argument. And so like, this isn't the hill that I would probably choose to die on. But I think the burden should be on the person who's making that argument to really kind of explain under what types of circumstances would that really be a showstopper that we absolutely should make an exception for that. Otherwise, unless if it's just, well, I just don't want to dox myself. I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm too in support of that. We should be a professional organization, and professional organizations know the people that they're working with. And as we've seen over the past week or two, even when you know who people are, it still doesn't prevent nefarious actors in the industry. So in general, though, that's at least a starting point where you know who somebody is, you know that they're effective, going to be effective for the role based on their background and what they've attributed about themselves and their nomination.
Yeah, I agree with that. We should remain at least somewhat flexible potentially, but the onus should be on the person that doesn't want to be doxxed to really give a convincing reason as to why. And I think that's going to be something that's very hard to do, because if you can't dox, the reason why you can't dox would usually be also a reason you can't expose for like most likely. So it's an interesting one that I think having some flexibility on is still good.
I think the true requirement, though, is if you can't dox and you can justify it, you need to change your name to a deceased mathematician.
Such as von Neumann.
Just hypothetically.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow, everybody. So we'll see you all then.